Something's been sitting with me lately, and I keep thinking I should just say it out loud. Today's conversation starts with two simple numbers that make a big difference later in life. My name is Dan. I'm 73 years old. Let's get into this together. I've spent most of my adult life watching people save for retirement and then watching what happens when they actually get there. Friends, family, neighbors, people I worked alongside for decades, and the same thing happens over and over. People spend 30, 40 years chasing a number they picked because it sounded right. $1 million, 2 million, something a neighbor said at dinner once and it stuck. And then they get there or close to it and something still feels off and they don't quite know why. I want to talk about that today. And honestly, before I go any further, I'm curious what number is in your head right now. Whatever you're working toward, wherever it came from, just write it in the comments. I'm not asking to judge it. I've just been thinking that most of us are probably chasing the same few wrong numbers, and I'd like to know if that's true. So, what I've come to believe after all these years is that there are really two numbers that actually matter, not the ones everyone talks about. Two specific points where things shift in a way you can genuinely feel, not just see on a spreadsheet. One while you're still saving, one after you've stopped. The saving one is $250,000. And I know the number people usually hear is $100,000. That one came from Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner, who stood in front of a business school class in 1994 and said, getting to your first $100,000 is really, really tough, but you have to do whatever it takes. Pack your lunch, take the bus, just get there. He was right. I don't doubt that for a second. But that was 1994. Back then, $500,000 was a comfortable retirement for most people. The world changed, and the milestone didn't. Here's what actually happens at $250,000 that I wish someone had explained to me when I was younger. When you're working toward your first $100,000, almost everything in your account got there because you put it there. Around 80% of the growth is your contributions. The account is basically just storing your discipline, nothing more. Then somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000, the account starts helping. Maybe 40% of the growth is coming from what's already inside it. You can start to feel it a little. And then past $200,000, it becomes close to half and half. You're still contributing, but the account is genuinely contributing back. At $250,000, something clicks that I don't think has a clean financial name. It starts to feel like you have a partner, like the account is working with you instead of just waiting for you. I crossed that number and felt it. Not excitement exactly, more like relief. Like I'd been pulling something uphill for years and somebody finally showed up to help pull. Saving doesn't feel the same after that, and I think most people don't know to expect that shift. The second number is the retirement one, and this one I understood only recently because I had to actually live through it. $800,000. When I retired a few years ago, I was scared of my own savings in a way I didn't expect and couldn't quite explain to anyone. You've spent decades putting money in, and then suddenly the direction reverses, and every time you take something out, it feels like a small loss even when it isn't. So you start being careful. You skip things you could easily afford. You eat the same meals and skip the trip and tell yourself you're being responsible when really you're just afraid. I did this. I've watched people I care about do it for years, a retirement they could have enjoyed more. $800,000 is where that fear tends to break because the math starts producing something that feels like income rather than depletion. Take 4% of $800,000 and you have $32,000 a year. Put that alongside average Social Security of around $2,000 a month per person, and a couple is suddenly looking at roughly $70,000 annually. If the accounts are structured carefully, a lot of that income sits in the lower tax brackets, 10%, 12%. You end up with something close to what you brought home while working. And that feeling, the feeling of income arriving rather than savings leaving, changes everything about how freely you can actually live. A researcher named Michael Kitces looked at the 4% withdrawal rule across 115 different 30-year periods in market history. In two-thirds of those periods, people ended up with double what they started with. Half the time, they tripled it. Only 12 of 115 ended with less than the original amount. And the man who invented the 4% rule to begin with, William Bengen, has since revised his own thinking closer to 5%. On $800,000, the difference between 4% and 5% is $8,000 a year. That's not nothing. That's a real difference in how a year of retirement feels. The thing I tell everyone now, and I mean everyone, is to set up retirement income on a schedule. Same days every month, straight into your checking account, like a paycheck always was. Your brain spent 30 or 40 years expecting money to arrive that way, and when it stops, something gets uncomfortable, even when the balance is fine. Rebuilding that rhythm does something to the fear that the math alone doesn't do. I wish I had understood this before I retired, not a year after. I'm 73. I'm not that far into this yet, but I've already seen enough to know that the people who move through retirement with the least fear aren't always the ones with the most money. They're usually the ones who understood what was actually changing at those 2 points and why. Everything else followed from that. Tell me in the comments where you are right now. Saving towards something, already retired, somewhere in between, and what number is in your head? I genuinely want to know. I'll see you in the next one.